Start now. Okay, Assalamualaikum and very good morning to all. Hopefully everyone is feeling good on this very beautiful Saturday morning. Yeah. Okay, first of all, I would like to thank you all for spending your Saturday with us to learn something about design thinking. So before we proceed with to the main agenda, I would like to call our chapter chair, Dr. Azrimi, to give the opening remarks. Okay, Dr.
Okay. Okay, thanks Azza, and also our invited speaker Tuan Faizal Azmi, Tuan Kop. Ni orang mana ni?
Asal Kelantan.
Oh, Kelantan. Okay. Right. Hi, Mr. Sawan, Tuan, and others who have joined the session. Actually, I was asked by Nila Azara to introduce a bit on chapter. I don't know whether you know about IEEE or not, but this is actually the world's largest technical professional organization. It's a non-profit organization dedicated to advanced technology for the benefit of humanity lah. So, under E&E, there's a lot of branches and electronics areas. So, depending on the areas, we have, for example, biomedics or power devices and things like that. So we are coming from antenna propagation background, if you look at the chapter members, and then microwave theory techniques, and then also electromagnetic compatibility. So we have our normal AGM in the beginning of the year, and then we do all those voting and things like that, and then I don't know why they chose me. So, so anyway, I'm happy to represent the chapter. And then we have a lot of activities, sir, like webinars and then sharing like this. And then we are supporting funding projects for students. And then we do CSR and then USR with universities and things like that. At the moment, we have around 120 something members all over Malaysia. And then in the world, for example, I think it's reaching about 30,000 or something. So I think our chapter is doing good. We have done a lot of activities this year, and we hope that by having this sharing, it will benefit our members here. And then, from my understanding, this is the first time that we have a non-technical webinar like this design thinking sharing session by industry people. So this is very important and very interesting. And I also understand that Azza told me that this is like one part of the route for commercialization, because I think in our field, for example, we need to have our people which can have this business idea, business-minded idea, and then especially in our field, for example, antenna side or any others. So I think that's all from me, Azza. I pass back to you. Enjoy the session, all participants. And then I think this is informal lah, Sabtu pagi kan. So okay, alright. So enjoy. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum. Have a good day. Thanks.
Salam.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Azrimi. Okay, so today I am very grateful and very excited to introduce our honorable speaker from the industry. So a bit of our speaker. Tuan Faisal Azmi is the Chief Marketing Officer for NetSagate. And NetSagate is a local cybersecurity solutions provider. They are offering consulting, security assessment, and managed security services to clients within the ASEAN region. So Tuan Faisal looks into the growth of the company, including services development, lead generation activities, go-to-market campaigns, partnerships, and personal growth. He graduated with Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics from Multimedia University in 2001 and went on to pursue his master's degree in Master of Science Business Information Technology in Manchester Business School in 2008, where he first explored about design thinking. He is also a certified neuro-linguistic programming coach, given his passion in personal development. So since 2001, he has collected diverse experience in different areas, namely customer fulfillment and assurance service, call center management, film and commercial production. Yes, you heard me right. He also active in film and commercial production, event management, digital marketing, and corporate training, in which he has had the chance to apply design thinking either directly or indirectly throughout the operations and project management. So his vision is to empower people with knowledge and trust so that they can be the best version of themselves to face any challenges and live a fulfilling life. So you can connect to him via LinkedIn, where he is known as Tuan Tapai Faisal. Okay. And before we proceed, I have two things to announce. Number one, since we all come from various backgrounds, we have students, engineers, lecturers, and freelancers joining us today. So the speaker would like to request all the participants to share your name, where you're from, and your expectation from this morning talk. So you can leave your comment in the chat box. And secondly, there's a attendance link also shared in the chat box. So please fill up the link for us to issue the certificate of attendance later. So without any more delay, I now pass the floor to Tuan to start sharing his presentation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good Saturday morning to all. And thank you, Azhar, for the kind introduction today. Yes, I come from various backgrounds. Started off with electronics, and then I ventured to pursue my passion to film production. Produced one film which was Malaysian made, but made the rounds in film international film festivals. The commercials, work with brands. So all this is being served behind it, either indirectly or directly, with the approach of design thinking behind it. So this is pretty much how I approach things that are work related, that are career related, and I like to invite all of you to even think about how could you apply this to your daily lives. Right, so this is a learning that is in one area, which could be in your career, which you can bring towards your personal life, be it with your family, be it with yourself in your development, and be open to have a look, right? And right, Mr. Uy, just to get to know more about the topic. Yeah, okay, thank you for the sharing. Anyone else? Just share your name, and this is more of a santai session. I wouldn't call it a talk. I mean, I do have a few key points that I wanted to share, but this is more of a discussion. So it would serve me best to serve you if you can just share a bit about what you already know, or what you expect to know about this design thinking. There's no right or wrong answer. So you can just write something, anything. Okay. All right. So we just get to know more about the topic. Anyone else?
They are not warm up yet, I think.
Not warm up yet. Okay, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Can grab a cup of coffee, and then we can. I can start. So maybe I could just start with my presentation, or rather things that I would like to share. Let me see. Belum minum kopi, enjin masih sejuk. Yeah. Can quickly grab a cup of coffee, and because this is a santai anyways, and if you feel that, oh, you missed something, or you want to clarify a certain point, do stop me. Just put something in the chat, or this is also a meeting platform, so you could just probably stop me, because when I start presenting my slides, I won't be looking at the chat, but I believe Puan Azhar would be able to help me out to look at the chat if somebody is wants have a burning question, or rather want to interact. Okay, so okay, let's move on. Let me share my screen. Not the entire screen. A window. Right. Okay. So within the next 15 minutes or so, my intention is to have you take a look at design thinking, looking at what it is, getting a high level understanding of what it is, and maybe get an idea of how you could apply it in your professional lives and also your personal lives as well. But I'll be focusing more on the professional life today. Right. Can you see my screen, Asa? I'll make it full screen.
All right. Yes.
Yeah. So industry sharing, bringing your ideas to life. When I talk about industry sharing, like I mentioned earlier, I come from different industries, electronics, customer service, telco, film, commercial, and now I'm in cybersecurity with Exagate. Right. So so what is the purpose of design thinking? Right. So before we go into directly what it is, usually we need to know why is it important. The thing is with problems inside the world, we talk about developing a particular product, developing a particular solution, like even going through life. There are problems that needs to be solved, like really human. I'm not talking about just like high level layered problems yang macam very simple. I'm talking about complex problems which has a lot of variables that needs to be handled before you can make a particular that needs to be handled, and making the variables become constant, identifying it to become a constant before you can even start doing something about it, right? So when I say complex, for example, you think about I go with the example of making a film. A film starts as a tacit or intangible idea inside someone's head, be it in a director's mind or be it in a script writer's mind, or in the context of an inventor such as yourselves. It can be just an idea that is sparked inside your mind, and it is a very complex thing, this mind. It can seem like a simple idea at first, but how do you move from something that is intangible inside the mind, working it towards something that is being realized, either physically or with codes and whatnot, softwares, inventions, the things that you want to create outside from something that is intangible to something that is tangible. So that is a very complex process to have. And there are a lot of ways. As human beings, we have different types of approach to handle this thing, and design thinking is only one of the many approaches to it. And so the purpose of it is to solve complex. I've mentioned a bit about complex. Ill-defined. So ill-defined can mean something that is taken for granted. That is, common sense lah, kena tahu lah benda tu. Benda tu is common sense, semua orang tahu apa. But it come ill-defined, meaning there's a lot of assumptions that come into it. Patutnya orang tahu lah benda ni. So for example, a certain space, the problem is there's not enough parking space. Memang kita tahu, assumption ni ialah memanglah sebab tempat tu dah cramped up and tak ada dah cramped up, there's no parking space. Okay, so assumption is semua orang kena faham lah yang benda yang tempat tu is the parking space tak cukup. So come from assumption that number one, the DBKL or MPSJ or Majlis Perbandaran should take care of it lah. It's not mine. Number two, what is the cause of the problem? Is it a budget problem or is it a space problem? Is it because there's tanah kat sebelah ada, but it belongs to someone, or is it Majlis Perbandaran doesn't have the budget to create a new parking space? So it is very ill-defined, and normally ill-defined means that there is a lot of assumptions from the individual or from the design team itself. Right. Here it says wicked problems by an individual or group. So what is a complex problem? I've touched it in a bit. So the purpose of design thinking is actually a non-linear design approach or methodology that provides a solution-based approach to solving problems. So what it is actually one of the many approach or method. It is a mechanism. It is a mechanism to structure, because the process can go in so many directions. It's a very agile, and it is a very flowy approach as compared to but there still needs to be some form of structure, especially when you are working in a design team, when you're working in a team, because if you have 10 kepala having 10 different approaches, then you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna have like satu direction sini, you don't have the same vision towards or mechanism towards solving the particular problem. And I like to for you to notice that is a non-linear design approach as compared to linear. Now in software development, you have the traditional approach, or what we call as the waterfall approach, versus the agile approach, right? So the waterfall approach is there's one cycle. Okay, you define the problem, and you create, you define the problem, you start the conceptualization, you design, and you start coding, and you expect to be perfect in one go. That is a very traditional approach towards problem solving, right? Problem is, once you solve everything, then you found out, hey, actually there's a problem. There is a problem that was not seen during the design or conceptual phase. Problem is, you've already invested the amount of time and money to create the perfect solution based on the perfect problem statement that you thought you had, right? The difference in design thinking is, behind it is that knowing that there is always the initial problem statement can always change. Because why? As human beings, our needs evolve. Our needs can change. Even if you already defined this is the perfect one lah. This is the perfect one now, and this is it. This is it. This is the solution to it. Put money, put energy, put time. Tengok, the problem change. Because why? The people that is having a problem has found another solution to it, which created another problem. So then you are stuck. You've put all these resources and you are stuck. So that is that is a traditional approach versus an agile approach. And I think agile is quite a buzzword at this point, at the moment with scrums and everything else. So the key to agility, I think of it as an iterative process of the traditional approach. The main difference is you come out with the minimum viable solution that you can come out with, right? Which means the lowest, what is the most viable solution that you can come up with, given the most minimum resources that you can put into it: time, money, energy. So that is the difference between the traditional approach, from my understanding, as compared to an agile approach. So that is the purpose of the design thinking. Okay, I shall move on. So what is design thinking actually? What is this agile? What is the certainty behind all this uncertainty of this very agile approach? So come back to this. There is some form of structure behind it. There is actually is defined into 5 stages. So being non-linear, be careful not to think that, of course, naturally within the first cycle, you have to go through 1 by 1, 1 to 5. However, when you are you're doing the iteration, it might jump from 5 to 1, might jump from 5 to 2. It's a very, I'll illustrate in a bit in a diagram. But for now, for this slide, the purpose is for you to get to familiarize with the 5 stages of design thinking. So the first stage is to empathize. The stage is called to empathize, and the purpose of this stage is for you to gain empathic understanding. So to gain understanding is different to gain empathic understanding. Gain understanding could be, saya faham your problem. Okay, parking tak cukup, saya faham your problem. Okay, but the ownership doesn't fall on me. Empathic means that I put myself in that person's shoes. If I have to go do a business at that particular parking place, what would it mean to me if I don't have a parking there? Okay, so it is very important to make the distinction between gaining understanding and empathic understanding, because it is easy to judge if we don't put ourselves in that person's shoes, saying that tak apalah, if you don't come from understanding or empathic understanding, tak apalah, I understand your problem, but this is your problem, you handle it lah. So there's a very different distinction within the approach. And some of the activities could be to observe. right? And to observing is a very passive thing. So observe can be passive and active. Um, Passive observation could be just okay, looking at it, okay lah, apa jadi jadilah. Active would be okay, knowing what I want to observe, okay, knowing what is it I want to observe. And in the context of design thinking, it would be what is the human problem that is faced at this here, right? Engage and once you have it, you can start engaging and to empathize and focus on the human needs. Now, I'll illustrate this in how in Nexagate, how we come up with our own software. This is called the Nexa Security Intel. It is a cybersecurity dashboard. So the first thing is we observe within the past 10 years of our experience dealing with government agencies, financial institutions, banks and whatnot. We observe what are the needs and what are the qualms and the considerations and the problems that is faced by our clients, and we started to engage. What is the actual problem behind it? All right. So the thing that came to mind was, yes, there's a lot of cybersecurity solutions out there, but there's a lot, tons and tons, like thousands of dashboards that they need to look at to even come out with the understanding of, hey, is this tool serving the purpose? Is this investment or the money is giving the ROI or actually protecting our critical information the way it should be? So the thing that we came up with is there's no visibility of, number one, the infrastructure. Like they don't know berapa asset ada, oh tak tahulah. Oh, okay. So then there needs to be then what that means is that how does the COO or the CEO of the company knows the expense of the overhead to manage all this, the expenditure and the capex? As the CEO, or as a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, how do you evaluate that the money that you spend for a cybersecurity solution is effective if you don't even know what asset that you need to cover in the first place? So there's a lot of strategic issues happening on the operational level pun. There's a lot of consideration, and the way we dig out is to engage, asking them. Our CEO, our managing director went down and talked to our clients, asking them, hey, what is it? What is the area of concern? And from there, we can scope down what is the addressable market for this particular software or cybersecurity dashboard. Right? So that would be the first stage of design thinking. The second, right, is to define the problem. Now, normally in a problem-solving structure, straight away define the problem first. Right? Normally, it's very quick to jump from empathize to define the problem. So this is something that I like for you all to notice, that catch yourself in your team, in the design team or in the solutioning team, straight away, okay, kita go to the problem. Ready to frame the problem before empathizing, right? So now, come back to empathizing. Once you empathize, knowing what is the human needs, knowing what's the area of concern, what is the impact, what is the problem, and what is the impact that is for this particular target audience is facing if they continue to have this problem in the long term, right? If a CEO continually in the long term doesn't know what information, what are the critical information asset that they have in a particular organization, how would the CEO be effective in driving the business or organization? Okay, and thinking about how to grow and upskill the team members such that it serves the main company vision. Right. So then once we have gained empathy understanding, we move into framing the problem. Right. So framing the problem, normally in terms of activity, it falls into two types of activities: is to analyze and to synthesize. Right. The main distinction between analyzing and synthesizing sebenarnya, analyze is to break down the problem into smaller chunks. Right. So most of the time people analyze. Most of the time the approach is to analyze and that's it. Okay? But it is very important also to after breaking down, to look at synthesizing, meaning grouping certain problems to see if there's some similarities in that particular if this particular group can be defined into a group lah. That is what it means by framing a particular problem. And this is also important to understand the context of the particular problem, meaning what is the impact that the problem has towards all the elements around it. Now, this is example. I give an example, an elevator example, a very simple one. So the problem is after empathizing with a group of people in a particular building, so dapat tahu actually the problem they are late for they are late to go to work. They are late to go to work. Bila dah tanya-tanya why you late to go to work, then actually sebenarnya it's because of the elevator. The elevator is too slow, right? Sorry, it's not that they are late for work. The people that comes to work, the mood is very the mood is very low. They are very emotional, very macam angry, very agitated, and bila dah empathize, actually sebenarnya the common thing is because the elevator lambat. So because when the elevator lambat, then it affects their mood because they have to wait inside and maybe it's a bit cramped. So that is an example of after empathizing, dapat tahu the actual problem. Because if you don't really empathize and come from assumption, people coming into the office in a bad mood can be so different thing. You can assume ni mesti kat rumah ada problem dengan family. Can be something else. But after empathizing, found out actually example elevator punya problem. So then really define the problem is actually because of the elevator. Now, the elevator problem, is it because the elevator is slow or the experience of the people within the elevator? Okay. So after looking at the elevator tu, the designer decided, okay, why not letak cermin and also letak lagu. After trying that out, actually this bunch of people, they come into the office very okay. There's no mood lagi. Because why? In the elevator, before this thinking about the problem is actually the elevator slow. So kena buat elevator laju lah. So but the problem is no budget. Macam mana nak? So it becomes very one single track, single-minded punya approach as compared to what are the other possibilities? Maybe it's the experience that is created by the elevator for the people in it. The experience of moving from ground floor to 13th floor. So when letak cermin, actually they enjoy the ride in the elevator. They get to look at themselves. The space become larger, and also there's music in it. So it becomes an enjoyable experience going up the elevator. So then the people going into the office has better mood. Right. So this is how I'm trying to illustrate the flow of thinking between empathize and defining the problem. Okay. So the next one is once the with defining the problem, come back to here, it's very important to define the problem as it is in present time. Okay, not something that is before this. You can look at trend, right, before this, but you don't assume that if it happened 3 months ago, it is the same problem as it is now. Always look at, okay, 3 months ago there was this problem. Is it still happening now? To make sure that the problem is still relevant. It is very, very important. And also not to be stuck in the future. For example, tak apa, this problem in the future, there's already some initiative being done. So if that's going to happen, then this problem is not viable, it's not relevant anymore, right? So it's very important to make the statement being in the present. Yeah, you can refer to the future, you can refer to the past, but always come back to the present time. Yeah, because why? You can also start looking at presently. Are there already existing solutions around that I can look at? So you don't have to do you don't have to reinvent the wheel lah. Okay. Next will be to ideate. To ideate is the purpose here is to generate possible ideas, right? To generate possible ideas is to look at the possibilities, to do the brainstorming outside the box. Come back to the elevator earlier. If you only see the possibility as, hey, the possibility as kena pump duit, give the money to upgrade the elevator, then the other solutions wouldn't have come in, right? So it is very, very important during the brainstorming session to have the attitude that there is no bad ideas. Just throw it on the table and see what can come out of it, right? That's why there's this one approach that is called worst possible idea. To just in the design team, purposely, okay guys, let's think of the worst possible idea to do this, so that within the design team, there's no conversation of, oh, takut lah nak bagi this idea, maybe it doesn't serve. Because you know what? We already went through the process. The first 5 minutes, kita dah campak dah all the worst possible idea. Get that out of the way. So every idea that comes out within the next 45 minutes is going to be, it's not, we don't know whether it's good or not, but it definitely doesn't, it's not the worst idea already. It gives a certain confidence for the design team in a particular meeting ke, engagement ke, to have that conversation of, I'm not good enough, put away, or is my idea is my idea bad, to put that away, so that at least constructive conversation can happen. Okay, so that is in terms of the ideation. Next is prototyping. Once you have an idea of what the solution could look like, all right, so then you can start thinking of what, with the minimum amount of effort, minimum amount of resources in terms of budget, money and time, what is the minimum viable product or minimum viable solution that the team can come up with, right? Goes back to the intention of what you want to test with this particular prototype. It is very important to be clear of what you want to investigate, right? Because when you come into from ideation going into prototype, you already have a lot of ideas, right? But the thing is, you already have to start thinking, what is the prototype that needs to be designed so that I can be sure of these certain features. I can test them out later, and that test would come out with a meaningful information for me to either accept this feature, improve this feature, or re-examine whether this feature needs to be here or not. So for example, within our cybersecurity dashboard, we're thinking about, okay, the possible idea would be we have a compliance module which looks at the compliance under ISO journey, for example. All right, so then we know to come up with a particular prototype with some use cases, and then use case meaning if a user were to use this particular feature of the software, what would they use it for? All right, so then we come out with a prototype whereby, okay, these are some use cases. How do we code them in so that later on we know we can test these use cases whether or not it's viable or not, right? Whether or not these use cases, either we can number one, whether the prototype serve the use cases, or number two, whether the use cases is actually relevant or not in the bigger picture. So this thinking needs to already be, you have it when you're doing your prototype. So I've seen in design thinking when I was working with Telecom Malaysia. Telecom Malaysia had a workshop for the product team. So they had this workshop. They went through empathizing, define, and ideate. What we did was we even interviewed actual TM customers to empathize with their particular problem, and one of it was to come out with a particular website. Okay, website, because one of the TM's client, he wanted to, as a business, start his own e-commerce platform, right? So thinking, when the TM punya design team were thinking about this, they went through the process, ideate, okay, maybe we should start coding straight away. So they were thinking of, okay, kita buat coding, kita buat the e-commerce lah as a prototype. Suddenly one of the team say, why do we need to put so much effort? We just want to know the use cases and what it does, right? Yeah. So what they did was, they didn't even do any coding, because they don't know. I mean, this design team, none of them know coding. So it was a very creative approach. What they did was, okay, let's focus on the UI, or the user interface. What it is, they use cardboard. Dia use cardboard, dia buat dia punya website tu based on the cardboard, and presented it. Okay, kita klik kat sini. Bila klik kat sini, dia keluar this page. And it serves the purpose. So you don't need to hire, it saves the budget to hire an actual programmer to program the prototype. Because you already can test out the particular features, even if it's a physical, pakai cardboard. And Lukis lah, and they had so much fun doing it. All right, so it's very, very important to have this mindset in place, to have this mindset in place. So the minimum viable product means less effort in terms of energy, time, and money, but still come out with something that can be tested, right? And the last thing, the stage number 5 is rigorous testing. So rigorous testing is to be careful and very detailed, very purposeful, knowing what you want to test in the prototype, like I mentioned just now, and making sure that, okay, this is the intended outcome. This is the testing. How far is it? Is it right on the dot? Is it far away? Or is it, how far does it deviate from the intended outcome? Okay, so for example, if you are into marketing, if you're doing social media, so you can test out a post. For example, you do a post, you set up 3 type of posts on social media, because you want to increase the number of followers. So one is a video, one is a text, one is text based, one is infographics, for example. The purpose is to get as many engagement as possible. So you already are clear with the intended outcome, right? To see which one has the most number of engagement. So it's very, very important to have this set of questions right up front, and be very clear what the intended outcome is. Because if you, with that illustration, if you go into video ke, text ke, or infographic yang paling bagus, if the intended outcome is engagement, is very different from number of followers. It's a very different question to ask yourself. If this, any one of this is within the intended outcome or not. How far is it aligned? Because that is the target that you set, which you want to hit. Okay, so it's very important, because you see engagement naik, but then if you ask what is important for you is the engagement to go up, but you're looking at the number of followers going up, then you would have a problem. Okay, and it is also important to be, the next point for testing is that it's very important to be open to revisit, redefining the problem. Because for all you know, when you are testing the prototype, you find out, hey, this problem, actually there's a bigger problem to it. Or you might find that, hey, this problem sebenarnya is not that critical. There is a subset of this problem that is more important. to be addressed at this particular point of time. Yep. So this this is the 5 stages of design thinking lah. I take is there any questions so far?
Yes, we have 3 questions.
Okay, apa tu?
Okay, maybe we see number 1 first. From Dr. Azlan Aziz. Can you relate if any correlation between CDIO and design thinking?
CDIO means Chief Data Information Officer.
Conceive, design, implement, operate.
Okay. Conceive, design. Okay. Yes. Definitely, there is a correlation to it. All right. So if you were to map it, because ada banyak approach with regards to design. You have the ADDIE, macam software development use the ADDIE punya approach. Design thinking is one approach, and CDIO is definitely another approach. So conceive can be pretty much related to empathize and what you call this? Empathize and define the problem when you conceive, right? And ideation is already in design, and implement would be aligned to prototype. Implement, operate would fall under prototype and testing. So that it would be the correlation that I would see from CIO and design thinking. Okay. The second question.
Second question from Sawan Tuan. Okay. Hi everyone. Tuan Sawan here. Design thinking is something relatively new to me. I would like to learn more on how to fill the knowledge gaps I have and find out whether there is a systematic and organized way to produce products, especially software and services that delights customer.
Yeah. So definitely, design thinking, as I mentioned earlier, is to make sense out of nonsense. Alright, nonsense meaning how do we put an idea? Product, software, services comes from an idea. Can be as simple as a mamak session. Actually, there's this problem. Teenage girls now, kids now spend too much time on Netflix. Or my son spend too much time. It can come from there, but it can, something that's so simple but can be part of a bigger problem. When you find out there is a bigger problem lah. I would like to learn more. Of course, you can learn more, and if find out whether there's a systematic and organized way. Yes, design thinking can be one of the systematic and organized way to approach products and software and services. And the added value is that the attitude towards having it being an iterative process, an agile process versus the traditional way, which is just a one cycle waterfall.
Okay.
Sorry, I have another point, which is to delight customers, right? So that's why it's very important. What you assume originally when you design a software that would meet certain customer expectation, when you test it out, when you do a UAT with a particular customer, they might come back to you and say, hey, this one is actually no problem for me. I have a bigger problem. Now, if you already spent 1 million ringgit, for example, for just a particular prototype, then you have a big problem lah. But with design thinking, with just a minimum prototype, you are able to get that feedback early and go back to the drawing board in a very agile manner.
Okay, we have the third question because this is something I'm interested also. How to cap the cost and risk for non-linear, especially when coming to budgeting. So when maybe during this design thinking, we don't have this, budgeting in mind yet because we aim to solve a problem, right? So how to cap the cost and risk?
When you say cap the cost and risk, okay, I'll handle one first. To cap the cost, when you say the cost, is it the cost for the whole solution, or is it the cost of the development in design thinking? That is something I like to understand.
Maybe you just elaborate in either one of.
Okay, all right. So so if it's for the whole thing, I think I've illustrated that having it in agile manner, in the long run, actually, it is a more effective way to manage the cost as compared to one time, do or die, either 0 or 100. Can 100, okay, everybody will clap. you're the winner, you're the man. Tapi kalau
Mm.
kosong, then it's your head on your chopping block lah.
Mm.
So that's the and obviously tracking and monitoring is also very, very important, right? Because it is agile, it's very important to declare a time, the time that you want to spend, the amount of time that you want to spend in each of the stage, right? If you empathize, if the whole project cycle is 2 years, you spend 1.5 years on empathizing, then it's not an effective way lah. Right? But if you spend, you need to be really aware of how to declare the amount of time that you want to spend on each of the cycle, so that it becomes purposeful. Okay. And managing risk, I think from my point of view, the agile approach of design thinking has lower risk as compared to the traditional way of a waterfall. I think I pretty much answered that earlier within the presentation lah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the last
Not every boss can empathize. Some do not want to provide any technical training, but only expecting its employee to perform. Then they always keep recruiting new employees with new experiences to replace existing employees to avoid providing training. Okay.
ini perasaan.
Luar perasaan. Well, there is something here. Not every boss can empathize. Do not want. Okay. My point of view, not every boss can empathize. From my point of view, the boss, it's not that the boss can't. It's not that the boss don't have the capability to empathize, but it's more of the willingness to empathize. And Mr. Tay already illustrated, and some do not want to provide any, because it is actually a choice. It's not a capability. You're not born not being able to empathize, unless there's some like very specific health and psychological issues lah. But as a normal human being, you are pretty much capable to empathize. Yeah? If you have a family, definitely you need to empathize what your wife needs, or what your husband or your children needs, right? So by that logic, definitely it is the willingness to empathize to a particular problem. Right? And goes back to the intention. Do not want to provide any technical training, but only expecting its employee to perform. So the problem statement here is that it is a certain level of expectation that is being put to the employee. Again, the willingness of the boss to see, to come from result oriented, because this is related to another talk actually by Simon Sinek, the infinite mindset. So it's more of the question between they illustrate between Grand Hyatt and another hotel. The same employee working in two hotels. One is the culture of the boss come and say, how can I support you? Right? And the other one is the boss come and say, you perform. If not, I'm gonna marah you. Okay? Between these two, the same employee, the employee perform in the one where the boss say, how can I best support you? Yeah, so this is a culture thing lah. Then they always keep recruiting new employees and new experiences. Yeah lah, they have to recruit new employees lah, because definitely if the employee doesn't grow and doesn't grow in the culture, the employee chances are would just move to a better place lah. Yeah, and it will be about money. It will be about money, whereby in an organization you would want your employees to serve the company's vision rather than work in the company because I want to get paid. Very different motivation.
Yes, true. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I think
We save some of the questions later on.
Okay, can. You have 10 minutes left. I have just one slide, so which is fine. Or 1 or 2 slides, which is quite quick. Okay, knowing the 5 stages, then these are some of the attitude based on my experience behind design thinking. Very, very important to have this sort of attitude. One of it just now I mentioned in terms of declaring the time how important the time is towards the whole process. Okay, that's one attitude or thinking behind design thinking. right? That's what I mean by attitude. So all the important attitude when you are implementing design thinking in your design team is number one, notice the attitude that you have towards problems. Okay, number one, do you think that a problem is a given? Maknanya, parking space tak ada lah. Nak buat macam mana? Kan? But rather come from the understanding and the context of the problem. So this parking space tak ada. Why did it happen? What is this person experience? Katakan, say you have the same parking punya problem, but you have a sample of 10 orang. 10 orang, seorang ialah makcik, seorang ialah student from because I stay in Subang Jaya, section 15 ni paling problem lah parking tu kan. So you have a makcik yang memang dah Subang Jaya, ada makcik yang dah like my mom, mak saya dah bekerja kat pengetua dulu, sekarang dia retire. Dan ada student from Inti College, dan ada memang orang yang kerja dekat that particular office block, part timer yang kerja dekat kedai kopi. Alright, so all of this rather than it's a given lah, so that it's a parking problem, so diorang kena hadap lah. But rather than coming from that, kalau MPSJ fikir macam tu, then there will be no action being taken towards that. But if MPSJ come from understanding the context of the problem, understanding, hey, these 4 people, sebab tak ada parking space ni, how does it affect their life? How does it affect their capability to work? How does it affect their overall life bila dia balik rumah? Kan? Just because parking space ni tak cukup. Okay? Then you can start, so that the framing can really happen. Then the possibility, you create the possibility of multiple problem statements that can happen. Oh, makcik problem ni sebab macam ni. And then only you can come out. So the most important thing here is to have this attitude so that you can start creating possibilities. And number 2, okay, the attitude of looking at a problem as an opportunity rather than a problem as a problem. So MPSJ can come in, problem ni problem lah, okay lah, tak apalah, so nak kena, rather than that, what if treating it as an opportunity, having the attitude, okay, this is how, example MPSJ is organisation kan, let's say seorang pekerja dalam MPSJ, looking at this as opportunity to create a better experience within the particular space, which is well within his control. Just being mindful of the type of energy you create during the process, right? Looking at it as an opportunity, because why? After going through all the process, remember this is an iterative process. After going through all the process, bila testing cakap, alamak, we didn't see this. Is that a problem? Yes. But it's very important to be mindful. What is the energy that you are creating when you find that there's a new problem? Do you think of it as oh no, ni teruk and or hey, this is a new opportunity, a new problem that we can solve, and we find we can look at this at a different point of view, different angle. So this is one of the attitude lah, the attitude towards problems. This is something illustrated with Netflix and full of Blockbuster lah. So this is something that you can read. Short for time, so I'm going to skip this illustration. But you can Google this. It's a classic case of looking at the problem as an opportunity, or is it a problem? Blockbuster decided, hey, it's a problem, and decided to go ahead with the video rental. Netflix look at it as an opportunity, so they shifted into an online punya content. Okay. So another one, going for excellence, not perfection. The biggest difference between waterfall and agile is that this attitude of you go 100% and make sure that every iteration is the best that you can do given the resources that you have put to come up with the minimum viable product, versus looking for perfection within satu kali buat kena perfect. It creates a difference of energy. Excellence creates, you go for excellence, it creates very positive energy and vibes as compared to going for perfection. Going perfection kalau tak perfect, then macam mana? Always go for 100%. Rather than if you achieve 98% pun, you won't celebrate. Even if it's 2%. Tapi you dah buat the whole work ni. But if you go for excellence, right? Even if it's 98%, you would celebrating the small wins when you go through all the iterative process. Okay, one iteration. Okay, find out ada benda work, ada benda tak work. Yay, right? Benda yang work, we can keep doing this, or benda tak work, then we have to find some other way to do this, right? So then you can go back, being mindful of what sort of energy you're putting, and not go for perfection. All right, does going for excellence mean not going for perfection? No, I believe in the long run, when you go for excellence, you will achieve that. But going for that in the first place could be detrimental to the spirit of the design team, right? Okay, so a bit of a summary. Those are the two main attitudes that I would invite everyone to look at lah. And in terms of the summary, okay, number one, design thinking is an approach. It's a mechanism. It's a mechanism for you to have a non-linear approach to solve a particular problem. Okay, what design thinking is not. It is not an end-all approach. It's not the only right way to approach this. Right? If you think about it, if you really have the spirit of design thinking is not perfect. Design thinking might even change if going forward. It is what it is now, but even design thinking itself can still be innovated if you think about it. So that's a bit of a loop happening there. What it is not like a perfect and all thing. This is the only right way to do things. CDIO can be it, EDI can be it, can be one of it, but it's the attitude towards design thinking that is the thing that I want to drive, the point that I want to drive today, right? Because why? A method is a method, is a method, is a method. It's a mechanism, okay? This talk today, this sharing session today is a mechanism for me to provide certain value to come across, right? What happens if, say for example, my laptop crashes today? If I have the commitment to still provide this value, I would even open up my phone to give this particular to give this particular sharing. So it is very, very important not to get stuck at the mechanism of design thinking, but rather it is a method that you can it is a mechanism that you can fall back to, like Tuan Sawan said. It is a structured and systematic approach that you can refer as a guideline, right? So the magic doesn't come from design thinking. The magic comes from you, and in terms of what kind of value that you want to create using this particular approach. So I leave you with this question: what is it that you want to create? What is it that you want to innovate? What is it that you want to create, coming from empathizing what the problem really is, right? Defining the problem statement, coming out with the ideation with what possible could there be, coming out with the minimum viable product, and up to testing it and having the attitude towards this becoming a cyclical and iterative process. So with that, I end my sharing, but I believe I have 1 minute left to handle some.
Yeah. Actually, we are spot on the time.
Yes.
I think we can entertain a few questions, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a question from Hafiz Noor,
Okay.
which is also one of my colleagues.
Okay.
Yeah,
How should we test the demand of the product? Okay.
Yeah.
Should we try internally within the staff in the company or outside real customers to the buyers? Okay. Test the demand of the product. Definitely coming. Okay. Then my question would be, can a staff be a customer? Can the staff have the same problem that the customer have? Example, our cybersecurity dashboard. Okay, our attitude is that our staff, if this dashboard is applicable to an SME, Nexttarget itself is a startup. Aren't we one of the customers by definition? It's just easier to empathize because it's us, right? But there is, what I'm trying to get here is that there is actually no right or wrong. You can do both, right? And there is really and who's to say that the staff can't be unbiased? What if it is you set a culture of very honest feedback so that the staff, kalau salah benda ni, it doesn't bring value to me, I will tell my boss. And so that the cybersecurity dashboard can grow and it can serve the value to the real intended customers, which the intended customers could be our company on our own as well. Right? And if you ask me in terms of how to test it, of course, there's a lot of mechanisms lah. You have survey, you have interviews, you can have formal or informal, you can just have a sporadic, you have your staff go out and talk to people at the mama. There's a lot of mechanisms which I believe is out of the scope of what I can answer here lah. Okay.
Okay. We don't have any more questions from the chat box, but I have a question.
Okay, can.
So we apply this design thinking before productization or during. Can we do like productization in the beginning of ideation?
Okay. So in terms of the productization cycle, are you talking about daripada produk tu kosong sampai ke produk tu go to market, is it?
Yes, let's say that you were talking about the MVP, right? Minimum viable product. So can we start the productization process before MVP is established, or we need to complete all the tests from the ideation until testing, then we do the productization?
I mean, it's if you talk about productization, the output of productization is a product. I don't see how if you don't, because the MVP is the MVP, which is the prototype, has the transformative power within design thinking, which is sebelum prototype is just an idea on a paper. Okay, so I don't see how you can productize without at least having a minimum viable product. So in short, to answer your question, from my point of view, actually you need to go at least through one cycle of everything before productization.